So architecture is exchanged in the currency of ideas. And what I mean to say is, why don't watermelons grow from a lemon tree? Things that seemingly are relatively known to us become adopted and taken for face value and aren't questioned. However, Plus Farm is interested in interrogating some of these paradigms to reveal new methodologies and new ways of making, new ways of thinking, where we shift the authorship role from the single architect to poly-authorship roles where students and professionals engage on different levels of making and thinking, to question some of the preconceived notions of what a dwelling might be or what a house might be. And a lot of what the issues that we're faced with in our generation is that urban environments and suburban environments are sometimes pitted against each other for the type of home or the amount of property or the value. And that value is often not put into the context on a social scale. So for Plus Farm to operate, it's really a social, cultural kind of a platform for us to look at the conditions where we're working here in this rural farm in Perrysburg, New York, to look around at the conditions that are here and start to think, how can a team of architects work? Not necessarily, we don't wait for the phone to ring for the client saying they have a project for us, but to begin to raise questions about these preconceived conditions, not necessarily trying to answer the question that's been asked by others, but to actually start to ask new questions, to potentially engage a new way of thinking, or reframing an existing discussion. And it starts really from the process where the students who come here for the very first time are open to a very different environment from where they come from. The professionals that volunteer their time to come here are often engaged in practices that deal with completely different concerns. So here the playing field is leveled, where student and professional work together, working with the local community, and it's really about a project that seeks to work with the community in a way that previously has been left for the past 10, 15, maybe 20 years, left on its own devices to kind of fend for itself. And we see an opportunity here to be a part of this, really on a level that maybe hasn't been explored previously. So right now we're investigating architectural ideas through using the human body as the generator for both how we think about the space in which the body occupies and how the body is constructed, and therefore how a building could be constructed. Architecture is a process of which we think about the human being and the human body within it, and what we're trying to do is look from the inside out at how the body operates and moves, to start thinking about the architectural expression of that movement, and in a sense, the body as a generator for architectural thinking.
So this morning the students did a tutorial that showed them with Rhino and Grasshopper how to produce a sketch model that showed an aggregation of the components they've been inventing. It's supposed to be a really quick way to explore a lot of different variables using the software. What I'm hoping that they have learned from that is that kind of all the tools that we use can be used for different stages in design. So now, since they're in the conceptual phase, that they're learning to use the software to kind of do really loose or kind of rough sketches rather than making kind of finished technical models. I'm going to model something that represents just one component. So this can really be anything. The one I'll use is just going to be extremely simple. So I'm just going to make this little tunnel that I just modeled 10 feet across. So it doesn't matter exactly how big your model is, but it's a good idea that you just know its scale.
Where things are going to happen in the space, what tools are available to you guys, some like super sort of basic overview on how to use the stuff that you guys are going to be making the most use of yourself this afternoon. In terms of like general location stuff, we're gonna try and do all of our chopping stuff there, all of our fastening stuff here, and all of the access to tools. You guys are gonna be able to sort of like camp out some backhouse here in terms of like once you have your parts and you're starting to assemble things and play with them, you'll have that section. And then we're gonna try and keep materials and parts that are ready to be cut sort of where the bulk of you guys are standing, right? And part of the panel, but you don't want to clamp it down or you're going to get kicked back on the blade, which can be really dangerous. So this is where you're going to have the ability to do those sort of like super fine detailed cuts that you guys are doing. Sort of indicate like what that line means as it relates to the saw blade, or you're going to be 6 feet less the width of the saw blade potentially.
So we've completed the charrette phase and are moving into the testing and prototyping phase. This is an opportunity for the students to actually build their concepts at a full scale. So the mock-up is in terms of a proof of concept. What's exciting about the project is that the two teams have divided on two very different projects. One which is a more soft, more curvilinear type design, while the second is a more triangulated pivoting operation. One relies on a mechanical process and the other is quite attuned to the metric of the body. For us, we're waiting to see which project they will select. As in all Plus Farm projects, the students and participants select the project that they will choose to ultimately construct. For the duration of the prototyping phase, we will develop a full 3D model in Rhinoceros using the Grasshopper plugin to develop a both structural inner core and a structural exterior skeleton and cladding. What makes the Plus Farm process so unique is that it's from concept to construction. It's not a 7-day workshop in digital software. It's a thoroughly built out project. We're entering the construction phase of the project. This is a 4-day intensive build. Students will have 4 days now to actually construct the final project. Really excited about the project they've chosen. It's informally dubbed Soft House, although the project is generated from a very sort of rigorous, angular, structural rib-like system, almost like an insect, if you will, with its legs protruding from the bulbous body. The outside is soft and very much in tune to the metric of the human forms that we were studying in the first few days. So this is a very intriguing project from us, very, very different from other Plus Farm projects. The 4 days will consist of working with the materials that we've chosen, Luan, which is a floor underlayment, which is an incredibly versatile material. We'll be working with 1x6s to keep the load on the trailer very light. We'll be working with acrylics. We'll be working with basic stock lumber. The idea is that the nomadic dwelling would take on a very simple user adaptability where anyone could go to their local Ace Hardware and pick up a supply of these materials and then understand the concept of building in this house for themselves. The construction process will begin day 1 with the superstructure. Simultaneously to that, the digital team will be producing drawings for the proper cut and assembly for the superstructure. This process will be sped through for all parts of the project, from structure to component clips to skin to interior. Every process will go through the digital output to the fab and then to the construction team. So we're standing with the final product. The project is known as Touching Me Softly, a very simple idea about how the metric of the human body would establish an identity for probing spatial and structural opportunities through architectural form making, but also the idea of the dwelling. We've constructed a nomadic dwelling, a dwelling that can be put on the back of a small pickup truck, transported from any location, ideally built in very simple materials. The structure facilitates a small group of 3 or 4 comfortably sleeping 1 or 2. It produces its own power through solar panels, enough to run a refrigerator, a coffee maker, and a small hot plate to produce breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The nomad who's traveling in this unit has the opportunity to watch movies on his own laptop or her own laptop at night with the use of the solar power and laptop projector assembly that's equipped in the nomadic dwelling. The structure takes on its form for both, as I mentioned, the metric of the body, but also considering the dynamics of having an object traveling at speeds of 45 to 50 to 55 miles an hour on a small road. The design enables there to be multiple sectional ways of habiting the space, a lower level bed with an upper level resting and reading area. It's also equipped with a very small toilet. It's fully functional. This project will go on the road starting in mid-September. It'll travel from Perrysburg, New York down to New York City. The idea was, how does architecture play a role in identifying the current crisis of low-income housing that's both sustainable and affordable? How does architecture have an opportunity to advance what we think of the need for a house and combine it with this idea of a luxurious house? That a home is not just a need, but it's a place of respite and a place of enjoyment.